right, welcome back to Eyes Open Media. Hope you guys are doing well. Like, subscribe, and share, and thank you guys for watching the videos. Okay, so we have the Iraq report. There's really not much to talk about, so I'm only going to go over 3 articles with you guys. And the first one is the most important one, so I guess we're just going to do that. Benny didn't have a show last night. I thought he was gonna have a show last night, but he didn't have a show last night. He won't have one tonight, I believe. I think the next show is tomorrow. Okay, and I think it's called the 3 Days of Terror or something like that. Okay, and so yeah, so that's what's going on with him. Okay, so let's get started here. Oh yeah, before we start, I did post a video on Currency 365. You might want to check it out, talking about the rumors of dinar notes and bond notes and the 80-20, meaning about 80% of the people will not be able to exchange or will exchange, but they won't receive anything back because of private groups and things like that. They get scammed or whatever the case may be, or they don't even, or they have fake currency or whatever the case may be. So I did talk about that as well, and a couple scenarios. Okay, so I'll go over one of the scenarios after I read this article. So all right, so let's get into this article. It says Fayad. We all know Fayad, right? The guy who was trying to become the interior minister to keep the quota proxy system alive and going well. Okay, and of course Sauter and Abadi, Najafi, and others have the numbers, and Alawi have the numbers to dictate if these people are going to be in place or not. And they have already said that they want a technocratic government, and because that a technocratic government will then free the people, right? So Fahad kept, they kept putting his name in there, and the reason why they kept putting his name, we found out, was because of the threat to the Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi, okay, and which the world was very quiet about that. Only people like me was actually talking about why is Abdul Mahdi's threat, his life being threatened, not a big deal to world leaders around the world. But they were all quiet about it, and because it was coming from Maliki and Amiri, so, and the Iranian puppets, so that's why they stayed quiet about it. Okay, so it says here that Fahad, Deputy Prime Minister for Security Affairs, and Shirwan al-Wali as Minister of Interior. Now, that's the woman that I said on Currency 365 that I broke that news that she was probably, they were looking at her, and she was had meetings with the U.S. Embassy, the British, and Iranians. And I mean, she had meetings with a whole bunch of different people just to get this position. And also, Lebanon had adopted a lady in the interior for the first time ever as well. So Iraq was maybe looking to do the same thing. So her name was brought up, and and then it went quiet because Sauter never confirmed it. He was looking at a couple other people than her, and so were other people. So she wasn't brought up with the conversations with a Mary and Sauter. So I was like, okay, maybe they're just putting her to the side and they don't want a woman in there. I don't know. Okay, but we did talk about it on Currency 365. So here her name's up again. Okay, so it says after 115 days of the formation of the government of Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi, excuse me. I keep saying that. Sometimes I do go back to Abadi, right? And I'm really pissed off that Abadi didn't have the balls to get this thing completed, right? But he already told us, look, I had no control. I was never in power. Okay, I was just a face, a puppet, right? So, anyways, it says Abdul Mahdi, which is not yet completed, which should be unconstitutional, but it's not because they looped they had a loophole. There's a loophole in there where you can literally bring 13 people and say I'm the new prime minister with these people, and that's it, and that's all you have to do. Okay, so it says confirms leaks the agreement between the Fatah and the rest of the grant of Faleh al Fahad, Deputy Prime Minister for Secretary affairs. Okay, he says the leaks about the arrival of the deal for the final stages between the alliance led by Ameri and led by Sauter on the granting of the head of the popular crowd the position he wishes to take over, but without taking over the interior ministry. Okay, according to the leaks, quoting a deputy from the Fatah bloc, it was agreed to take Shirwan, whatever her name is. Okay, you guys know her name. Okay, and close to Nir al Maliki, the leader of the coalition state law, the portfolio of the interior, to give Fahad supervision of all security movements, including the plans of the Ministry of Interior and the popular crowd of during the post of Deputy Prime Minister for Secretary Affairs or Security Affairs, excuse me. Okay. Interesting. Okay. To satisfy Sauter, who insisted not to take up the post of Minister of Interior. This is so weird. Okay, so hmm. So they're gonna offer Fahad the deputy prime minister for security affairs. Okay. Hmm. I don't know what that. I don't even know what that is. The deputy prime minister for security affairs. And then they even say here, it says, includes the plans of the Minister of Interior and the popular crowd of during the polls. Okay, but it also says here to give Fahad supervision of all security movements, including the plans of the Ministry of Interior. So he's not going to be the Minister of Interior, but he's going to have the supervision of all security movements, including the plans of the Minister of Interior and the popular crowd during the post of Deputy Prime Minister of Security Affairs. Wow. Okay. Well, he's not going to be in the cabinet member. He's not going to be a cabinet member. He's not going to be the Minister of Interior, but he's going to have a powerful position, though. It looks like, if this is true, right? And looks like about so the they had leaks and stuff when the from a Mary and Sauter. And it looks like Prime Minister Mahdi is saying, okay, so this is what's really going on. We're going to give the women the position, and then but Fahad is going to have power to know the movements of the and the plans of this woman. Okay, that's going to be the new Minister of Interior and the popular crowd. Okay, so this is interesting. All right, as long as he stays out of the cabinet members, you know, um, it, you know, this is crazy, man. These people will do anything to stay corrupt. This guy is corrupt. He's a corrupt man. But all of them, a lot of them are corrupt. Except for I guess the technocrats aren't. That's why they're technocrats. But it's something else. Okay, so that's what we have. That's the latest on this Fahad craziness. And I can't believe we're still talking about Fahad in February, about to be in March, and we're still talking about Fahad, right? And they refuse to come back to Parliament and actually do anything. They're not going to come back till March 4th. So we can easily have more updates on Fahad, right? And more changes by the time they get into Parliament. And then when they get into Parliament, they might not even show up to even vote on all this stuff. Okay, so all these things that they're talking about could mean nothing if no one shows up to vote. Okay, when they actually get back open again, right? So if they don't show up to vote and to get this thing together, then it doesn't even matter. Like all the stuff they're doing now means nothing. It's amazing that they can get all this stuff. They can have all these meetings and get agreements now. But when Parliament was open, they couldn't get in agreements. They couldn't show up. They couldn't do nothing. So it's this is how they always are. When Parliament's in session, they can't get nothing done. But when Parliament's out of session, they get a lot of things done. So let's just wait till Parliament comes back on March 4th and see what happens. Okay, I would actually like the prophetic boom to happen during this time, so they have to rush back to Parliament with a national emergency. Okay, and I'm going to continue to say it. Iraq and USA are similar. Been doing a lot of similar things for the last 2-3 years, and I've been noticing it. So Donald Trump talked about that did a national emergency. I expect some type of national emergency to happen in Iraq. Okay, because they've been doing the exact same thing. Donald Trump wanted to create borders for the wall. A wall for America's borders and barriers, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, Iraq started removing the barriers from their banks, from their streets, from their roads, from their CBI. What is the coincidence of that, right? So we've been doing so many things similar that Donald Trump announced a national emergency and was able to release funds. I expect the same thing for Iraq. I expect a national emergency which will release the small notes and coins for the citizens. Okay, so how would that happen? I don't know. Okay, how would it happen? I do not know. If we need to see that prophetic boom. We need to see a prophetic boom because that will cause a national emergency in Iraq as well. Okay, moving on. As I told you guys, I only have 3 articles. So, one of the things I talked about on Currency 365 was the bond note. Okay, what if Iraq issued bond notes to draw in the 3-0 notes from outside? So let's say Iraq gets tired of telling their citizens to come in, but they don't want to raise the value because they still want to bring more 3-0 notes in. So they issue bond notes outside of Iraq, and then they tell the Western world leaders, hey, tell your people to bring in their 3-0 notes for these new bond notes, right? And so the Western world leaders or the White House or somebody tells us, hey, for those who hold Iraqi dinar, you can bring in your notes to the banks, and we will issue these Iraq international bond notes. Okay, your notes are no longer valid. Okay, and you can bring them in. They won't. Your notes will no longer be valid as they're bringing them in. So to change them in for these Iraqi international bond notes, right? And that will be a deception, right? Because as soon as they turn them in, everybody's turning their notes in. Iraq will say, "Okay, we reached a number that we needed to drop the program rate and raise the value." And then all of a sudden, the value changes, the 1-to-1 or 120 or 120-to-1, whatever. And you're sitting there like, "Wait a minute! I just turned my 3-0 notes in, and they just raised the value to 1-to-1." And I'm sitting over here with an Iraqi bond note. What is this, right? And the value is devaluing every day. It's devaluing, or they might have a fixed rate of 1 cent, right? That's what I'm thinking. Like maybe they fixed it at 1 cent to draw people in. Like, okay, you can get this Iraqi bond note, international bond note. It's 1 cent. You know what I mean? It's valued at 1 cent to the dollar, right? And so people will be like, well, at least I'll just do that because I'm tired of waiting, right? And so that's a trick that they could do to bring in the notes as well. Have the Iraqi bond note, fix it at 1 cent, okay, and bring in all these 3-0 notes, and then raise the value that way. And then now you're talking about the 3-0 notes that you turned in are now at 1-to-1 to the dollar, and you're holding something that's 1 cent, right? And a way to get people, so they can bring in the 3-0 notes to raise the value as well. So I wanted to just let you guys know about that possibility. It could be a possibility as well. I wouldn't do it. I would just wait for everybody else to do it, and then Iraq raises the value. Okay, so that's just another scenario that could happen. Most likely that hopefully that does not happen. Is but it is what it is. We don't know. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. So we're just putting out a whole bunch of different scenarios that people can write down. Okay, so Speaker of the House to the Kuwaiti Minister of Trade, we will support your agreements with the Iraqi government. Now, you know that the Kuwait raised about $29.6 billion for Iraq in reconstruction and reforms and stuff. And so in projects. So of course Iraq's going to say, look, we support you. We support the agreements. Why? Because they want the money, right? They want the money, but they don't want to. They don't want to. They want the money, but they don't want to really rebuild Iraq. They really don't want to rebuild Iraq. They really don't want to help the citizens and stuff like that. But they want the money from Iraq, from Kuwait. So they're trying to figure out a way to get Kuwait to release the funds without helping the citizens out. As you guys noticed that, okay? So agreements reached and things like that. They got a lot of agreements. They're talking about agreements reached and all this bull crap, but yet they won't. They don't want to help the citizens, right? So they're talking about establishing a free trade zone between Iraq and Kuwait. Okay, contribute to activating the trade movement and the interests of the two countries. Okay, they're talking about this is Lisa's great support, okay, and leadership of the Iraq in its war on terror, files for displaced persons and reconstruction, okay. So it says trade relations to raise to a higher level in the next stage, the obstacles of development and intertrade, okay. So once again, they're talking about all this stuff, but there's no money being put in the citizens' hands. There's no job creations and there's no money being put in the citizens' hands. There's no giving back the wealth to the citizens. There's no giving oil revenues to the citizens. There's no giving purchasing power to the citizens. There's nothing like that. There's only things that are going to benefit them once again, all right? So, free trade zones and all these other stuff, that only benefits these guys. Okay, people that are poor they can't do any trading. Okay, so you know, anyway, so that's what's going on. And they keep talking about the displaced persons and reconstruction. They're barely doing any reconstruction right now, and displaced people are still displaced, right? They're files for displaced people. They still haven't activated Article 140. Okay, all these things that benefit the country and the people, they refuse to do. So but they're trying to make a way. They're trying to figure out a way, and you can see how he's smiling there. They're trying to figure out a way to get this money from Kuwait without helping the citizens. That's basically what they're trying to do. Hopefully Kuwait is smart. Kuwait already gave 15 million out of it was $100 million project. They gave 15 million out of that. So they're doing it slow and steady. And the other money, they haven't given any other money, I don't believe. But yeah, so I wouldn't give anything until they raise that value and remove the corrupt out of that government, and announce full technocrats in their cabinet. But yeah, so that's what I wouldn't give a dime to these people. So these guys are trying to find a way to get that 29.6 billion. I know Maliki's trying to figure out a way. Like, man, I need that 26, that 29, because the 90 billion that's sitting in all of my offshore accounts, that really means nothing to me. This 29.6 billion that's sitting over here waiting for Iraq, that needs to be in my accounts and not the citizens. That's what they're thinking about right now, right? They're not thinking about the citizens. They hate the citizens. Who are they? You know what I mean? And let's wrap it up with this one. U.S. delegations to Barzani, Kurdistan is one of the success stories in the Middle East. Yeah, and I've already talked about that many times. And that's why Maliki didn't give them the herbal agreement, because they were a success story. It was, excuse me. So I just I just choked on my own spit there. I don't know how that happened, but anyways, so Maliki was jealous of the Kurdistan region and how westernized they were and how explosive their economy was. He reneged on the herbal agreement because it would make them more richer, and he hated the Kurdistan region. Okay, they're infidels, right? Because many of them are Christians, right? They're Christians, or moderate Muslims, but a lot of them are Christians and Catholics and Jews, right? They have different religions in there, right? So Christians, some of them are Muslims, some of them are Arabs, but A lot of them are Christians and westernized. Okay, let's just say they're westernized. Okay, and they also, some of them believe sun worship. You can see the sun on the Kurdistan flag. So Maliki didn't like them because he's a Shiite, right? And so he didn't like him. He didn't like them. He didn't like Saddam Hussein because Saddam Hussein was a Sunni, right? So he didn't like any of that stuff, man. But he also didn't like them because they were thriving, right? And so he didn't do the herbal agreement. And then they started to not pay the Kurdistan region their oil revenues, and that really started to hurt the Kurdistan region. But looks like the Kurdistan region is back on their feet, and they're doing very well again. So not as what not they're doing way better than Baghdad area, but they're not doing as well as they were before. But they're coming back up really fast now. They're rebuilding. They already have their economic reforms in place. Like they've already got everything, right? They got the economic reforms and everything in place. Everything we're waiting on Iraq to do, they have already done it. So they've already got everything, and they've already started probably reconstructions and all types of stuff. Now remember, they have elite forces, so they a lot of the places probably isn't as bad. The Kurdistan region probably isn't as bad as the rest of Iraq because of the terrorism. Um, and if it is, they probably started to rebuild and stuff like that. But they have elite fighters, so that's another thing. He doesn't like the Peshmerga. Maliki didn't like the Peshmerga forces. Abadi didn't even like the Peshmerga forces as well. He refused to pay them, give them weapons. Obama refused to send weapons to the Peshmerga because they were destroying ISIS. They were even trying to tell the Peshmerga forces to stay away from the war, stop fighting against Daesh and let Daesh do their thing. Like it was embarrassing, man. Like they're killing Daesh too fast. Abadi started to halt the war. Remember that when Abadi he halt the troops for like 2 straight weeks in a row of fighting Daesh, so Daesh could take over territory. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. Why these people are still not in jail and prison, I don't know. Okay. So, anyways, that's it. I'm gonna stop rambling here. And they're just talking about what happened in the last several years, Syria, Baghdad, and Erbil, and all that stuff. Okay. So, anyways, that's it. That's all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and like, subscribe, and share. And like I said, Benny will do a video tomorrow, unless there's some breaking news tonight or something like that. But most likely his video will be tomorrow, and he's going to talk about the 3 days of terror that's coming up, apparently. All right. So, anyways, that's it. Eyes open. Peace out. Bye. Oh,